There we go.
Brian.
Is that you, Lee? Yeah. Okay. Jason, are we ready for streaming or one moment? Okay, not a problem. We'll get started as soon as you're ready. Good now? All right, perfect. Well, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pilecki.
Here.
Trustee Berkshire.
Here.
Trustee Delapenna.
Here.
Trustee Domke.
Here.
Trustee Lanesa. Here. Trustee Perkowski.
Here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to accept the prepared agenda as is?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, could I have an aye, please?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Next on our agenda, we have public comment. Anyone who wishes to provide a comment on a topic or an agenda item may address the village board during public comment. Each individual is limited to 3 minutes. I'll have a timer provided. And I know the clerk did receive requests forms. So if the clerk would read, the first one is John Hill. So if you'd approach the podium. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, all. So I live on 533 Rush Street. Some of you that have been here since 2013 remember. I got the backflow system pushed through here so we could save our houses from backflow flooding. Well, we're here and there's 5 neighbors of ours, 6 neighbors from the street that range from being here from 1967 to 2011. And the problem is from Trinity Lutheran Church, which is the corner of Rush and like where Spring and Rush hit, and Rush and Walnut. Every time we get, let's say, 2 to 3 inches of rain, our street becomes Lake Rush. And I provided pictures to the city and to Karen and Public Works, and she was very, very nice, and so was David. Responded very quickly on Saturday, but it's been going on for Larry, one of my neighbors, has moved in 1967. It's been going on almost since then. And we have done nothing about it. I'm asking you, and I know there's surveys out there. I still haven't seen our street on this survey, but it's supposedly being surveyed done. I'm asking you for help because we cannot live that every big rainfall where our street is null and void. We can't use it. And it seeps into some of the homes. Last Saturday, it got up on the west side of the street. It got up to 2 feet to people's front door. And then we have cars because we're a pass-through lane for going from the south side of city to the main city. So people just cruise on through creating waves. And the waves then hit our property. So I'm asking, what can we do? And how fast can we sort of view it as an option where we get some relief? I have more details, which I gave Karen, but I don't have time. I'm probably pretty damn close to my 3 minutes. And I do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. And I think we have a couple more comments on flooding, so we'll go through all those. And then I know Public Works has been looking into it a little bit more. So next, I think it's your neighbor, Larry Wilborn.
Thank you for the opportunity to bring our problem before you. As John had said, I've moved here in 1967. And whenever we get a large rain, this has been going on ever since I came here. One of the problems, it seems, is the property that is east of Trinity don't have storm sewers. They have drainage ditches. And that drainage ditch by Trinity becomes overwhelmed by all of that runoff. So as a suggestion, maybe an engineer could look at redirecting some of that water so that it doesn't flood our neighborhood. I've had people cut through my front yard to avoid going through the deep water. You can imagine the damage that does to your lawn. So anything you can do for us, we would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Joseph Abraham. Okay, thank you. We'll put it on the record, though, that you came to discuss the flooding. And then I apologize, Tariq? Okay, thank you. I apologize.
Thanks for having this open meeting for us. As our neighbor John and Larry have said, and we have this anxiety every time it rains and just the flooding. Luckily, we were able to get that flood backflow valve flood thing installed to prevent any sewage from backing up. But every time the street gets flooded, we just worry that, we're going to get something in our house. In fact, our neighbor who's not here, unfortunately, their house gets flooded all the time because they got water running through the back stairwell that goes to their basement and any sewage backup that might occur. Luckily, they didn't get anything this time. But we're hoping that somehow this gets addressed because, my wife gets anxiety when she hears there's going to be a big rainfall. And it's been many times that we've had since we've been there since 2004. And there's, I can't even count, maybe 10 times that it's rained heavy and we had to worry about flooding. And we've had water in our basement, sewage water, which isn't a good thing, but we don't have that anymore, luckily. But we just want to get this issue of the street flooding because it's not a good thing. It's weird to see other streets like Spring Street on the other side of us and Park Street, they're okay. And we're the only ones I don't, because we got a lower point. And I know the main sewer lines and water lines run through our street too. So hopefully the survey that I heard is going on, hopefully it looks into that and figures out some kind of solution for that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. And just for the record, before I turn over to Public Works real quick, just to provide some information, by a show of hands, how many people are here for the flooding issue, just for the record officially? So I count, 8. So we have 8 just for the record, that will reflect in the minutes came on, in addition to those who spoke. Karen, would you like to speak to some of the flooding concerns and what we have in works right now?
All right, so thank you, everyone. I had the opportunity to meet with several residents this weekend. With any flood event, I think it's important for us to identify what we actually do as staff during those events and how we address these situations. We're constantly monitoring the weather. We know that with their snow events, we do the same thing with rain events. And in advance preparations, we're working with our staff to go out in advance of all storms to do storm cleanup. We do creek checks, we do storm sewer checks. We make sure that grates are not covered with debris and stuff that helps reduce the flooding in those areas. During the event, we partner with the police department, who are our boots on the ground and who are very helpful during these events to identify when we are having issues that really necessitate a need for our staff to come in. So then Saturday, we started receiving calls such as that. Our staff came in and responded and got out into the areas to start relieving those sewer grates and stuff to relieve flooding in any areas that are non-capacity related issues. With the events, we actually triage everything, much like police and fire do. We identify 3 different things. We have structure flooding, roadway flooding, and then nuisance flooding. We always triage and get to those homes that may be having issues with flooding in their homes. So that's how we triage our events. We always encourage residents to utilize our online request form and contact the village. We utilize that information to help identify where our problem areas are in town, other than just, leaves and stuff that are around. A great example of that was a storm in May of 2020. Out of that storm event, we actually started mapping, much like you see on the map in front of you, areas of town that are experiencing consistent problems and many problems. So as part of that, we actually have identified a storm sewer evaluation. We have 2 areas of town right now that we're looking at. One of them being I'm sorry, this mouse is a little slow. One of them being this area along Rush. It's the Rush drainage basin. So everything that drains down and out through our wastewater treatment area is considered the Rush basin. The second area is the Seasons 4 here on the west side of town. So we've actually hired Christopher Burke Engineering, who's doing a storm sewer study of that area to determine if we have any low-lying things that are easy fixes for our staff, larger capital improvement projects, or private property items that we may be able to address as well. That study is currently underway. We anticipate that being completed within the next 2 months. And we'll be back as part of the budget process to provide an update as far as what we have identified and any future improvements that we deem necessary. So out of this, I would say the biggest thing is it's super important for residents to be reporting that information, because we do utilize that to make recommendations for future improvements.
Thank you so much. Does any trustee have any questions of Karen regarding what she's provided for additional context? Trustee Domke?
Just Karen, particularly this spot on the map, where is it that Rush Street is on that map? And these residents have been here a long time and they've had this a long time going.
Mhm.
So isn't there some study already done that tells us that we need to put another pipe in there, or?
That's what this story, as far as I understand, this area of town has not been studied. So the biggest impact that we saw was at Rush and Walnut, which were the pictures that were provided from those residents, but actually upstream of that along Trinity Church and Banbury, there's additional areas that we've noticed throughout these storm events. Past studies I'm not aware of. That's what we identified as part of when Krista and I were evaluating last year, the storm events, that there's consistently problems in these areas. The pipes may be at capacity. We may need to look at other options. And that's the point of going through a study. It actually, much like our water modeling we did with our water plan, it does the same thing. It models that system and says, here's how much drainage is going to an area. Are the pipe sizes the appropriate size, and so on.
And the second part is, isn't there anything simple that we could do to just try to alleviate for now until we put a more progressive system in?
Well, we have to have a place for that water to go. And right now, those pipes
It's near the water treatment plant.
Well, it still has to have a place downstream. We've got downstream, even in the water treatment plant. We have our staff, we had to put a secondary gate in. The water's up to chest high.
Aren't the
We can't
ditches
get
great to
vehicles.
kind of move it along? I mean,
They are, but you have to have them big enough and you have to have pipe sizes big enough. So that's what that storm sewer study will evaluate and determine what our options are. We would never want to go through and do something, especially in these areas, that we think is a quick fix, because you may end up creating
Another one.
unintended consequences downstream to other people.
I get it.
Well, thank you, Karen, for the extra context, and to the residents, we appreciate you sharing your comments. I think it's one of those situations where we won't have a very quick solution, but we're definitely have the attention on this. And, there's a lot of strong feelings about the water and sewer fees and the capital improvement fees, but that's exactly what those are for. It's to help us tackle these expensive projects. And so, come August, I hope that we'll have some more information. We can share that through Public Works to you guys to keep you in the loop about what timelines look and what solutions might be for this. So thank you for sharing your comments tonight. Yes, Trustee Trejo.
Just to piggyback off those comments, Bruce and I are both on the Finance Planning Committee, and we've identified, potential opportunity to invest more in capital projects. So we'll definitely take that under advisement once we look at that later this year in August.
Thank you. Next, we have a participation request for Jim Staged from, thank you, sorry, my apologies. Perfect. This is your time. Come on up. I'll just start the timer for 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Jim Stager, live at 370 Lakeside Drive. I've been a resident there for 33 years. I just learned of the variance request a couple days ago. And the neighbors said, well, didn't you read your letter? I did not receive a letter. Fortunately, I missed the sign and I don't get the Daily Herald. So there was no information until someone told me about it. My neighbors sent me the link to the zoning meeting. Yesterday, I watched it last night, and it raised several flags for me. The first one is, when I stopped by here to say I wanted to speak, I talked, I think it's Karen, and she said, well, Jim, you got a letter. I said, well, no, I didn't. She said, well, yes, you did. They certified that you got a letter. It's required by ordinance or, that you have to be notified. And they certified that. And I said, well, I didn't get it. So we'll check the post office. Well, Karen, do you have a list of the people that got the letters? She gave me a copy. I'm not on the list, just so you know. And then I took a little bit of time just looking at our block, and the address 365, 355, 345, 335 did not get letters. Next street over, I looked at a couple houses, 361, 362 did not get notification letters. I didn't even bother going to the rest of the block because now, if you get to the end of the block, you say, well, is that over 500 feet or something or not? You say, well, where's your property? I said, well, person on the south side and north of me and the east side of me all got a letter. I just happened to be missed in the middle. And I have some objections. So what I would like, what my main request here, because I know I have to be brief, is that I'd like to see you table this until the next meeting so we can verify with the other people that did not get notified legally of this variance charge. Okay, so I started doing a little research in my little time that I had today for an hour, and one of the things I heard in this meeting was they're not gonna expand. They're already expanded as far as they possibly can. They're not gonna have any more people. They have a bigger church. So I tried to find their bigger church in North Lake, and it's a post office box. So, and then I looked at their deed, and they've got a quick claim deed in February. They said they've been holding church there for 7 years. Well, they just took property to the church in February. I think it's a tax shelter. So, I mean, I've got a real estate background in finance. If you give me more information, I'll probably prove that to you with their quick claim deeds. And then if you look up their company, Fourth Avenue Gospel, they have an assumed name of Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Oh yes, there is a Plymouth Brethren Christian Church in Bensonville, and the Bensonville property is up for sale for 1.4 million. So it's just all these crazy things. Why would we want to give a variance to build a house on a 75-foot lot? What's the benefit to the village to have another house? The only benefit is that they would be able to sell and make a profit on their property, and that's what the whole intent is. It's being done for profit.
Thank you so much.
And I wonder about the easement behind them with ComEd. And guys, I don't have a problem from a religious standpoint. I sang in the Spirit of Life Community Choir, Christian choir, non-denominational for 30 years. So it's not the church. I'm opposed to the organization that seems to be using this as a tax shelter. Thinking a little more on the financial side. All I'm asking is table it for a month. If everything I'm telling you is bull,
Okay, thank you so much for your comments. Karen, can we just discuss real quick and address the address concerns since there's some legality issues, if that's true?
So I just checked the notification list that I provide to the petitioner to send out the mailing. And Mr. Staker's name is on here, James W. and Margot Staker at 370. It is, sir. So our requirements only require that the letters get mailed by the petitioner. So they sent some via certified return receipt requested, which I have the receipts for. And then they signed an affidavit stating that they had mailed all of the first class mail. They don't have to guarantee that the mailings are delivered because that's the post office's responsibility, not the petitioner's.
Okay, thank you for those comments. All right, thank you, sir. Your time is expired, unfortunately. I mean, at this time, based on our list, which is our official list from the village business perspective, your name is appearing on that list. So whether it's something got cut off or whatnot. Karen, can I just suggest maybe we bring the conversation out to the hallway so we can continue on with some of our business? Thank you. All right, and we did not receive any other resident participation forms, correct, clerk?
That's correct.
All right, so we'll move under now to mayor's report. So we've got a new officer swearing in, so I'll let the chief give a brief introduction to our new officer before we do the swearing in.
Mayor Board, I'd like to take a minute and introduce
Hope so.
That was a test.
I call him the rookie. You gotta call him the rookie. And then,
Yes.
Jacoa is he's actually recently from the police department. A little bit about him. He has his high school education from Roselle High School. He's got his bachelor's degree in public safety management, Calumet College at Whiting, Indiana. He was a paramedic, but a paramedic in the Lake Fire Department. He spent a couple of years up there. And again, a little over 8 years from Chicago Police Department. Last assignments was the critical incident response team, which you spent, looks like about the last 6-7 years on. So congratulations to us for stealing you out of the city. He's got his wife Samantha and Asher, his son.
All right, well, we'll make you official. So if you would raise your right hand, please, and please repeat after me. And I have the cheat sheet here in case you need it. I state my name. I, Jacoa Osorio, having been appointed to the position of police officer, in the village of Roselle, in the counties of DuPage and Cook, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois. That I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer according to the best of my abilities. That I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer according to the best of my ability. Congratulations. Thank you.
I'll start. Kind of a simple guy, so I'll keep it short for you all. But first, I'd like to thank the mayor. Mayor's over here, and the village of Roselle for giving me the opportunity. You guys are all involved in part of that, so I'm forever grateful and thankful. And then, of course, next, I'd like to thank for a long time. That's out of time.
So are we.
But for us, it's exciting. We're excited.
All right, and next I would like a motion from the board to adopt a resolution approving an employment agreement with Jason Blowski.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you so much. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, nay. Any abstentions? That motion passes. So congratulations, Jason. You're officially village administrator. 15 years of service, and it doesn't look like you've been here, a day over 5 years, so.
Now we're gonna age ya.
No, I think the village is in great hands. Really appreciate your service and glad that we were able to continue to lead forward a new path with you. Next, we have a request from the Roselle History Museum to fund ongoing events and projects through 2022 for the village's centennial celebration. So I'll give the floor over to the representative.
Okay. Better?
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
There we
Thank
go. Good evening. My name is Diana Eckert, and I'm here on behalf of the Centennial Committee for the Village of Roselle. Do this so it doesn't fall. I always feel proud when I walk into this building and know I don't have a flooding issue to complain about. Especially this room. There's lots of memories here. Most, not all, but most are good ones. All of the meetings with the residents, the developers, the business owners, and of course the staff. And it still makes me feel proud to have served Roselle. And I think past board members would say the same thing, going all the way back 100 years to our incorporation. Roselle has come a long way thanks to a lot of hard work by a lot of dedicated people. It is 100 years of dedication and pride that the Centennial Committee wants to celebrate in 2022. In your packet tonight is a list of events for this celebration. Anchored by the Roselle History Museum, or the Roselle Historical Foundation, as I'm used to saying, the group has expanded to include members representing many factions of our town: the American Legion, the Lions, the Roselle Public Library, the Roselle Garden Club, Flags for Roselle, schools, business owners, and of course, the village board, and even more. This list of events is just the beginning, not the end, as we expect more events to take place. Tonight, we are asking you to set aside funds to help defray some of the costs of this year-long milestone celebration. For those of you who may not have lived here or may not remember what we did 25 years ago, I did bring a few items that people could purchase then to show their pride in our village. I'll show you some of those. With your assistance, our children and our children's children, as well as your new residents, will be able to look at their hometown with the same pride you and I do and say, it's good to be home. On the list in your packet, I've highlighted in red some of the things that the committee feels that the village could fund or help fund. In addition, the Centennial recommends items with a special logo be available for purchase. And I'll show you some of these. We did a logo contest 25 years ago also, and it should have been started here now for the coffee mugs. I really like this coffee mug because it's on both, the design is on both sides. So our design, 75th, was on the t-shirt. So this was actually also the banner, street banners that were up throughout the village. So those were available for sale. And we also 12 shirts, logo. And we also had sweatshirts. These were all purchased. We also sold, Historical Foundation, sold Mr. Lincoln rose bushes, and the Garden Club will be doing that this year. We also had an anniversary, a set of anniversary plates. This is a sample that the state of Illinois, Secretary of State sent us. And you can purchase that and have it on your car for 30 days. This expired September 27th 1997. The design for the 75th and the 100th is both diamond. It's the same. So it'll be interesting to see what they come. We also had labels on every single thing, every single envelope that left the village for a year. So whatever we mailed, they saw that. And then on our letterhead, we had the special letterhead, and we just had Mark from Printing Plus add the logo. So it was on, right on the. Lapel pins. As I look around, I don't see anybody wearing lapel pins. We used to wear them all the time, all the time. Mine has faded over the years, but it's blue and it had a white diamond in it with the red roses. So anytime we went anywhere to represent the village, we wore that lapel pin with pride. And it was much bigger than the old lapel pins. They were really tiny. You could barely see them. These you could see. Everything that is not listed is something that was sold in 2001 that was suggested we bring back. So we could just change the date. But it says on the so it was suggested that we spent 43,000 back in sales of the promotional items. So it didn't really total 43,000. Oh, Linford Winery will be providing a special wine for purchase like they did before it was called Diamond Cuvée. I still have the bottle. Didn't bring that. And then if you notice, there's, I said Art Council. It's some women that are very interested in art, promoting art in the village. And they are suggesting that a mosaic be put on the west brick wall of 8,000 Miles. So they've talked to the mayor, they've talked to the business owner. So it looks like something that might be able to. And that's pretty expensive. So anyway, it's a beginning. We want to have something for every month throughout the whole year. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Trejo?
I mean, my only comment is I'm totally supportive of us spending money for this, but, and I did see like the things highlighted in red, but I don't see any costs associated with them. So it'd be helpful to see like how much money we're allocating to each one, and then we can make a, case by case basis of if it makes sense or not.
Yeah, how much you want to spend like extra for fireworks, that would be up to you. I wouldn't have a figure for that, but the street pole banners, we'd have to, be able to provide you the information. We used a local sign company, and I've forgotten which one. Printing Plus did a lot of the printing for us. The artist that won the logo contest was actually a professional, and she might have been able to order some of this stuff for us.
Trustee Berkshire?
No, let's go. You go ahead.
So my comment was simply is I agree with Lee. I think we should see what some of these dollars are, and we can certainly start talking about them as we look at our midterm budget, as well as Lee pointed out earlier, he and I are on the finance committee, so we can look at opportunities that we can try and
Right.
figure out beyond that. But I'd also look at ways in which we can maybe solicit some types of donations, et cetera.
Yes.
So I think we should also look at all the opportunities such as that.
Yes, we definitely did that before. Businesses were able to put, for a fee, were able to put their name like on a banner. So if it included the banner and the pole and the bracket, I think they were charged they were asked to, well, they were charged $25. What the fee is now, I don't know. For example, the rose bushes were $7, we sold for $7, Historical Foundation sold for $7.50. They're now $24 a bush. So, and our dinner auction that we had in October was only $35 a person. There's no way we can do that for that. But yes, but definitely, we were definitely considering business involvement, but we didn't want to have to hit them with everything, you know, sponsor this, sponsor that, you know, they get overwhelmed all the time. So,
I would look at the village then as another sponsor.
yeah.
Trustee Domke?
Yeah, I wanted to just say, like, this is going to be a phenomenal event. I mean, I was alive when the country was 200 years old and they did everything. I mean, it was an honor to be alive for that celebration. And we're also honored to be alive for this 100-year celebration. I don't think that Roselle will have another one for maybe 50 more years.
Right.
So people are going to look back and see what this village did for itself to
Yeah.
celebrate. And I think it's going to be a marketing opportunity because I think businesses that are thinking about Roselle are going to think about us a lot harder when they see how we celebrate our 100-year
Right.
birthday. So, you know, and to Bruce's point, I think there'll be a lot more donations coming in
Right.
this time than even the 75th, because this is even more significant.
Right. And since I typed this up, there were more ideas presented that wouldn't be very much like a pooch parade and, you know, a fishing derby. And, you know, we spent $450 to have 100, I think it was tagged catfish put in Turner Pond for the fishing derby. I don't
Yeah,
know what
many
it
of
would
the-
be now, but
Many of the things going on could just be rethemed,
yeah.
like the parade, just retheme it.
Right.
every year.
Right. Right.
Any other trustee comments? It sounds, oh yeah, go ahead, trustee.
Were you thinking of getting donations from businesses, just total dollar amounts, or sponsoring one whole event, or what was your thought process on that?
Yes, probably, right?
Right. I think it would depend on the business and what they wanted to do. I mean, if they wanted their name on something, they would, you know, they would want to do a specific thing. If it was a business that didn't need the publicity, I guess, then they would just write a check.
That's good too. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Based on what I'm hearing, does it sound like the board's direction would be to staff to evaluate the dollar amount and start to look at some of the events and start to itemize that and bring that back for mid-year budget or 2022 budget review? Is that the consensus of the board?
Yeah, I mean, I would say even earlier, if possible, through email, just administrator report, kind of just, you know, if we have those numbers, the sooner the better, but.
I think what we'll do is Jason will kind of coordinate and figure out, probably, I would assume Missy, but I won't speak for him. We'll reach out and we'll kind of have some side conversations to bring that back for board final action. So. Thank you so much. And then just, you know, I don't want to drive this home too much. I know there's always going to be issues during every event. And, you know, I have a different lens now that I'm seeing things through than I had before, but I felt the weekend, you know, really just want to send my appreciation to Public Works. I felt like the team was very responsive and we were able to get out there, and we can't stop the rain, but at least it felt like the team was very engaged and out there trying to solve issues as they were happening Saturday. So appreciated the communication and the team effort that was out there. So just wanted to pass that along to the team. So any village trustees have a report today? Seeing none, we'll move to village clerk.
None.
Thank you very much. Village attorney.
Just one item, Mayor, agenda item 8, consent agenda, which is modification of the consent agenda. Section 2 guidelines, 3rd paragraph, 3rd line, strike the second word may, M-A-Y, in that sentence.
All right,
Nothing further.
not too bad. Village administrator.
Thank you.
All right, we have, we'll move to unfinished business. So today's consent agenda. We have items that are considered routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial in nature that will be enacted in one motion. There's no discussion on these items. Tonight, we have presentation and approval of the village board meeting minutes of June 14th, 2021. Approve and release the executive session minutes of January 11th, February 22nd, March 8th, March 22nd, and May 24th, 2021. Approve the destruction of verbatim executive session recordings from September 2018 through May of 2021 that can be legally destroyed per state statute. Approve the first partial payment for the 2021 sidewalk replacement and utility dig-up program in the amount of $45,750.36. Approve the first partial payment for the 2021 street improvement program in the amount of $453,715.88. Adopt a resolution amending the consent agenda policy for the village board meetings. Pass an ordinance amending section 2-212, powers and duties generally of Article 8 of the village administrator of the Code of Ordinance of the Village of Roselle. Pass an ordinance amending section 3-32, classifications of licenses, and section 3-34, terms and fees of chapter 3, Roselle Liquor Control Ordinance of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Roselle. Pass an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Village of Roselle, Illinois, limitation on the number of licenses covering the sale of alcoholic liquors in the Village of Roselle to increase the number of Class U licenses from 0 to 1 and decrease Class E licenses from 2 to 1 for Pollyanna Brewing Company. And then pass an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinance, Village of Roselle, Illinois, limitation on the number of licenses covering the sale of alcoholic liquors in the Village of Roselle to increase the number of Class U licenses from 1 to 2 for Relative Brewery and Tap Room, 10 Spring Street, Roselle.
Motion to approve.
All right, thank you. And because there are ordinances on this, we'll need a roll call vote when the clerk is ready.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Delapenna,
Aye.
trustee Perkowski,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move to community development. Trustee Berkshire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to conduct a public hearing for the annexation of 100 East Devon Avenue.
Second.
Is that Tom? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Madam Clerk, we'll need a roll call, please.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Delapenna,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Perkowski,
Aye.
trustee Domke.
I thought a reasonable thing was brought up tonight. Should we discuss that first before we vote?
Right now, what's on discussion is the annexation of the property. So unless it's immediately relevant to it, I'll defer to the attorney.
What's on discussion at this point is whether to open the public hearing. And that's all that's on the agenda at this point in terms of motions. You can proceed with the public hearing. You can elect not to proceed with the public hearing. Those are options, but there's one thing that I do want to bring to your attention that's extremely important in that regard. And that is this relates to the church and this relates to the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. And there's some, I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on. What I wanted to say to everybody in the room, this relates to an annexation, but it also relates to the First Amendment of the United States because it involves the application of a church. And I want to address one of the comments that was made by the gentleman in his statements about this concept that this church is a tax shelter. Okay. And it's extremely important for this board to understand the law associated with that allegation in going forward, because the issue is not whether this organization is a tax shelter. It's whether or not this property should be annexed to the city. This board has absolutely no legal authority to deal with whether this church is or is not a tax shelter. I mean, you can make an argument that every church in the United States, because they're tax exempt, is a tax shelter. So the legitimacy of this church from a theological standpoint is not at issue tonight for this board. If a complaint wants to be made about that situation, it is brought to the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General's office has the legal right and the authority to explore the issue of whether a religious organization that's registered with their office is being used for fraudulent purposes. And you can have organizations that are registered for fraudulent purposes.
But this board doesn't make that determination because of the specific language of the First Amendment of the United States and how the courts have interpreted that. The First Amendment of the United States states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. And that's the question that we're dealing with here. This board doesn't decide whether a particular religion is legitimate or not legitimate. It is not the function of this board. It says Congress here, but this amendment, the First Amendment, was made applicable to the states by the 14th Amendment of the United States after the Civil War. So as a consequence, that's the law. That's not part of this discussion tonight. And I would highly recommend you don't go there unless you want the village to end up in a civil rights suit in federal court, which you will lose because you don't have the authority to address that issue. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention as we go forward tonight. If the gentleman has a complaint, he can bring it to the Attorney General's office and have them investigate whether this is or is not a legitimate religion. I did some research on the underlying church associated with this. It was founded in Ireland. It was founded in the early 1800s. It's been around for quite a while. Whether the particular group operating this is operating it in conformance with that, again, it's not part of the analysis for this village board. That would be the part of the analysis for someone if an allegation of fraud was made and the Attorney General's office felt that it was appropriate to take that under investigation and make that determination themselves. And if they felt that it wasn't, then what they would end up doing is filing a declaratory action in court. They have the court set that aside. It is highly dubious, though rarely done. And one of the reasons for it is the freedom of religion in this country is a paramount freedom, which the courts have been extremely, particularly this current Supreme Court, have been extremely protective of since the inception. So I just wanted to bring that issue to your attention before you go off into a conversation of, well, you know, is this a legitimate religion? It is not for this board to decide that question.
Thank you.
And so on that note, I think we have a motion on the table that needs to be considered, which was to open the public hearing. And we had a motion and a second, if I'm correct.
Yes.
We're down to roll calls. So I think at this point, we
Wayne was the last.
So I guess I should say that, you know, based on the P and Z and all that I've heard previous to this meeting, I would vote aye too.
with
This is
that,
just to open the meeting.
It's just to open the public.
You're opening the hearing. That's all you're doing at this point.
Now we discuss.
with that, the public hearing has been open. I'd like to make a notice that notice has been served, as well as a publication put in the Daily Herald on June 11th. And that notice is also on file with the village clerk. And with that, I will start with the public comment by asking if any member of the public wishes to ask a question of the petitioner or staff. Noting none, I will then ask whether a member of the public wishes to speak in favor of the petition. Hearing none, we'll ask whether a member of the public wishes to speak against the petition. Hearing none, I will then open it up for questions and comments from the board. Hearing none, I would then make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Clerk, another roll call is needed, please.
Did you, a voice vote is acceptable?
Oh, okay, yeah, voice.
Closing? Okay,
I would, under the circumstances, do a roll
Okay.
call vote.
okay.
Thank you.
And I'm just verifying, was that Tom, second? Okay.
Tom,
Trustee- What?
We got two Toms.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Trustee Brookshire,
Yes.
trustee Delapenna,
Aye.
trustee Prokowski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Domke.
All right.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance authorizing execution of an annexation agreement for 100 East Devon Avenue.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Does staff have any comments you'd like to add at this time regarding the annexation? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. In keeping, we'll do all these as a roll call vote. So Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa,
Aye.
trustee Burkowski,
Aye.
trustee Delapenna,
Aye.
trustee Domke.
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Mayor, so then I'd like to make a motion, pass an ordinance annexing territory to the village of Roselle, DuPage and Cook Counties, Illinois, and establishing R2 single-family residence zoning and amending the zoning map for 100 East Devon Avenue.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Trejo. Any conversation from the board or questions? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Delapenna,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa,
Aye.
trustee Burkowski.
Aye. And that motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving a plat of subdivision lot split for the Devon Lag subdivision.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Trejo again. Any questions from the board or comments on this one? And I think just for the public's benefit, Karen, could you just explain what the subdivision is about? For the lot split, rather, I apologize.
The plat of subdivision real quick. So the property known as 100 East Devon, right now, there's a single-family residence and a detached garage. Single-family residence is located on what will be Lot 2. The detached garage would be located on Lot 1. As part of their overall petition from the board, they're requesting to subdivide the lot. So the house would remain on Lot 2. Lot 1, the existing detached garage would be demolished, and they are requesting to build a small chapel. All structures, the existing house and the new chapel structure, meet all zoning requirements in the R2 zoning district. They are the only variances they're requesting is what's going to be your next motion, which is lot width variations to permit 75 feet in lieu of 80 feet. In my rough calculations using our GIS, 75 feet is not out of the question for the Buttonwood area. Some are larger than 80 feet, but there are some that are in the high 70s. So it's not totally out of the realm of the character of the neighborhood. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote, another roll call vote, if the clerk doesn't mind.
Trustee Trejo, or I'm sorry, trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa,
Aye.
trustee Perkowski,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Delapenna,
Aye.
That motion carries.
And I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance granting lot width variations for the Devon Lag subdivision.
Second.
Any questions or debate from the trustees? Seeing none, we'll move to another roll call vote.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa,
Aye.
trustee Perkowski,
Aye.
and trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Finally, I'd like to make a motion to pass an ordinance granting a special use permit for a church in the R2 zoning district.
Second.
And then just for the sake of the public, again, could you explain what a special use permit is and also what recommendation carried from the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yeah, so special use permit, we have certain uses in certain zoning districts to provide the village board with greater control over those uses. It allows the village to adopt conditions, place restrictions on how that use takes place on a property. So the Planning and Zoning Commission made 2 recommendations as conditions. The first is that the use runs with this church specifically. Typically, special uses run with the land. So we've written the ordinance so that it applies to this church only. If another church purchases the property and wants to operate there, they'd have to go through the special use permit process again. The second condition is that any alteration to the site plan for the church would trigger a major amendment to the special use permit as listed in the zoning ordinance. So literally, if they do anything, they have to come back and go through this public hearing process again, which they've agreed to. They also informed me that their engineering plans for some reason didn't show. There are planning to plant arbor vitae along the western property line, along the west side of the church to provide further screening in addition to fencing going all the way back to the right of way.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments from the board? Yes, trustee Berkshire.
So if they were to sell the property for someone else to use it as anything other than, or so if someone decided to buy that piece of property and then decide to put a home on it, since they're retaining the home, would that also have to come back?
No.
Or is it just a special use because of the fact that it is a chapel that is being used? So
Yeah. So if a new church saw that the property was up for sale and thought they could just move right in and operate out of that property as a church, they would not be able to. They would have to go through the public hearing
but a
process.
developer buying it who wants to put a family home up has no,
Correct. They just go through the building permit process.
As long as they satisfy all the building permit
yes,
requirements.
yes,
If they
that's-
don't require variations or anything, Bruce, they'd have to come in and they'd have to amend.
thank you, Jim. I was,
It's a permitted use that can issue a building permit. Anybody can do it on a residential lot because it complies with current zoning. If it doesn't, however, they have to go through a process to get it approved.
thank you. No further questions.
All right, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Prokowski.
Aye. That motion carries.
And Mr. Mayor, there's nothing further from community development.
Thank you very much, trustee Berkshire. Under administration, trustee Prokowski, you do not have anything. Trustee Trejo, you do not have anything under fire. Trustee Delapenna, you do not have anything under police, which leads us to public works. Trustee Domke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of change order number 1 for the 2021 street improvement program between the Village of Roselle and Schroeder Asphalt Services Incorporated for additional work in the amount of $118,974.85.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Anything else?
No more, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move to finance. Trustee Lanisa.
Yes, I move to approve the accounts payable list for June 28th, 2021 in the amount of $1,247,515.62.
Second.
I assume there's no questions or comments, but I'll ask for the sake of. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. You're fine. Come on up. It's time for the
Come on
treasurer's
down.
report. It's that
You're the
favorite.
next
Right up.
contestant.
You're no longer the opening act. You got to close it off.
More pressure.
Yeah, gotta be a show-stopping performance here.
Wow us.
Better than looking at a screen and talking to everybody.
And you actually have an audience today.
I have an
too, so-
audience, I know.
Not for long.
Pardon me.
Almost the wrong one there. You gave Jason a heart attack.
Wait, everybody left when I was up here?
You almost hit end on the video streaming.
Oh.
And we're done.
There it goes.
All right, so in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this a little bit short. So tonight's treasurer's report is through May 31st, or 42% through the fiscal year. And due to the reports following this one, I'll not go through the whole report like I usually do, but instead I have just a couple of slides highlighting the most important points. And so the first one is our monthly budget versus actual. So this is in your packet. I just wanted to highlight this one. Our major revenues are here. And as we're going through the year, sales tax is almost right in line with budget. Income tax, local use, ambulance billing are trending ahead of budget, and the rest of them are starting to catch up a little bit. Video gaming tax, as we know, was suspended for a while, but every month that we're getting video gaming has been pretty much higher than every other month we've ever gotten it. So I just wanted to point this out, that our major revenues are all coming in either at budget or a little bit better. Second is this, just a comparison between 2020 and 2021. You can see there's about a $175,000 difference, revenues over expenditures compared to last year. Revenues are up 12%, and expenditures, while they're up 8%, still revenues are outpacing expenditures to this point. And then the last slide I have, and I decided to compare this to 2019 because, as everybody knows, 2020 is weird. But sales tax is coming in 6.5% higher than 2019. And eating tax is 3.1% higher than 2019 through the same period. So again, showing our business community is doing well. The one point I would like to make, sales tax, we've been getting, due to the change in the formula, we've been getting a lot more what used to be considered local use tax. I think we're on the better end of the stick compared to a lot of other communities. I think we get a lot of shipments to Roselle. Therefore, the tax is coming to Roselle. And the other part is we've seen local use tax go up by a couple of percent each month, which we expected that to go down as they rearranged the formula from per capita to where it is delivered. We're getting the best of both worlds. We're getting both revenues increasing. So, and we'll really see, I believe June is Amazon Prime month. I'm not really sure, or next month. We'll see what that's like, because we do get data by company. I can't give that to you, but I can at least give you an idea of, where they're at. And with that, I'll answer any questions you might have on the treasurer's report.
Any questions for Tom? Yeah, Trustee Trejo.
If you have the number offhand, can you talk about how many people participated in the restaurant rewards program?
Yes, so we have the last group being billed in a couple weeks. But so the first 3 billings, there were 586 residents that or households that took advantage of the program. I would say we're going to almost double that in this last just by the number of applications that I signed off on as they came through. So we'll probably be sitting around 1,000, and we have, I think it's 7,000 plus residents that would have been eligible. So 1/7 to 1/8 of those participated. So I think it was pretty good. I think it was a great program. We actually heard from some restaurants that were very appreciative of the board doing that. Especially in the beginning, they're like, wow, thank you very much. Because they actually had people coming in talking about the restaurant reward. It started off a little bit slow, but the town likes pizza. I know that. There's a lot of pizza receipts coming through. But it was very interesting. It was very eye-opening to see. And I think we got receipts from every single restaurant in town. So it was very nice to see. But I would guess we're going to be at about 1,000.
Any other questions for Tom? All right, then we'll move over to the actuarial valuation reports.
So I have Jason Franken from Foster & Foster is here. He'll present both the police and fire pension actuarial reports.
Thank you. Tom mentioned my name is Jason Franken, and I'm an actuary with Foster & Foster. We've completed the January 1st, 2021 actuarial valuations. I assume everybody has a copy of those reports. You know, it's nearly 100 pages total of actuarial goodies, but I will boil it down to a few high-level points just to, you know, so we're not here all evening. Overall, you know, I would say the results of this year's valuations are pretty good. You probably used to the contribution requirement increasing over time, and that's really a function of the system, the funding program that's been put in the Illinois Pension Code. Most places fund on the basis that's in the Illinois Pension Code, and that you've probably heard of the pension ramp that leads to increasing contribution requirements for your pension plans. I will say that your pension ramp isn't as steep as others because unlike what's in the pension code that requires you to have a 90% funded ratio by 100 or by 2040, you've elected to fund to get to a 100% funding ratio by 2040. And as a result, you're paying more than what's required by the state, but that is a more fiscally responsible approach to take than than the 90%, essentially ignoring 10% of your liability until the year 2040. So with that in mind, the police contribution, the requirement for the contribution to the police pension plan went up by about $50,000 from 1.898 million to 1,935,000. So it's closer to 40,000 rather than 50,000. Overall, the experience was fairly neutral for the year. We've had 2 strong years of investment returns, which means that we smooth investment gains and losses to eliminate some volatility. But after two strong years, you had a 5-year return that was nearly 9.3%, which exceeds our 7% assumption. So that was positive. There was there weren't as many deaths from the pension beneficiaries, and obviously that's good news. More people living longer, but that does add to your pension liability. And so things like that sort of offset some of the gains. In total, the experience was pretty much a wash. It was, pretty much what we expected. And we're left with an increase to your contribution, like I said, about $40,000. We would have expected it based on the pension ramp to increase by $50,000. So there was a little bit less of an increase for the police plan than what we had expected. For the fire plan, the contribution requirement is actually going down by $44,000. We would have expected it to go up by about $15,000, but the return again was strong. So that added to that decreased, the amount that we would have expected it to increase. And there was also a reclassification of a disabled retiree. A disabled, member that was less than age 50, which when they would have normally been eligible for a pension, they were receiving a disabled retirement benefit that was reversed, and that led to a $600,000 gain for the plan. And so that's really what's driving that decrease to the contribution requirement for the fire plan. In terms of some of the statistics that you've heard of, the unfunded the unfunded liability for the police plan, went up from 20.7 million to 20.8 million. So it did go up a little bit. Meanwhile, the unfunded liability for the fire plan, which is the smaller of the 2 plans, decreased from 4.9 million to 4.4 million. Again, that was driven by that $600,000 gain that we saw. The funded ratio for the police plan was 57.3% last year. It increased to 58.9% this year. And the funded ratio for the fire plan went from 62% up to 67.2%. So again, that's a fairly big increase, and that was driven by that reclassification of the disabled retiree. So these contributions are really used in the following year's budget. So the amount that we've developed as of 1/1/2021 is that the amount that's contributed to the plan during 2022. So this, we do that a lot, most places do that, because if we were using it for this year, you would be getting the numbers right now and you would have to contribute it during the remainder of the years. So that's one important thing to know, that we've developed these numbers as of 1/1/2021, but they will be contributed next year. The final thing, just briefly, that I wanted to mention is that what I've talked about entirely so far is the cash contribution to the plan. There are also GASB requirements. So these are the accounting numbers that go into your annual financial statements. These numbers are based on a completely different set of rules. And so, for example, for the police plan, I reported that your funded ratio was 58.9%. That's based on the approach that is outlined in the Illinois Pension Code. However, on a GASB basis, we do have a different funded ratio, and that funded ratio is 63.9%. So 5% higher than what I've reported here. You might answer, well, which is the right answer? I know Jason, the next speaker, he'll say that the 63.9% is the right number because that's what's going into your audited financial statements. However, from a cash perspective, it's the 58.9% that we're reporting. This is the number that you most often hear. Like I said, the difference is the uses. One, the cash number, we have some smoothing mechanisms, that investment return smoothing that I talked about. We spread it over 5 years to eliminate some of the volatility. On the GASB basis, we're not allowed to smooth. So the reason it's higher this year is because we had a really strong return and we're able to recognize that entire return immediately. Over time, these numbers they'll go back and forth. The GASB numbers will be much more volatile because it's going to be driven by the market value of the assets. So again, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands, if you're looking through the report, for the first 35 pages or so, you're seeing one set of numbers, then you get to the back of the report, there's a different set of numbers. That's why, is because of two different purposes that the actuarial valuation is trying to satisfy. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions that you may have.
Any questions tonight? All right, thank you so much. And
Thank you very much.
thank the Financial Planning Committee, and I know Tom for all the work that they've done. And, I'd love to try to push those numbers up higher. And I think we've got some plans in the works to do that. So
That sounds like a green light for us.
want to see 60 and 70s. Let's see it.
It can happen.
All right, Tom.
All right, so the last one I have is our FY 2020 annual audit, the annual report. Jason Coyle from Baker Tilly is here. He'll probably tell you to read the MD&A, and I'll tell you to read the MD&A. That's the beginning. That's the management's discussion. It gives you everything you want to know. Feel free to read the rest of it, though. It's good reading.
Hey, good evening. Good to be with you, Jason Coyle with Baker Tilly. Between Tom and the previous Jason, I don't know if there's much left for me to say here, but I'll do my best to go through a couple of things. I do want to thank Tom and his team, though, for all the help during the audit. We continue to do things remotely this time, and I know Tom and his team have a day job on top of getting ready for the audit and giving us all the information we need. So we appreciate his help for sure. So related to your financial statements, obviously at this point, the financial statements are almost 6 months old. We're looking at historical information, unlike the previous presentation where you're looking at future contributions. We're going to look at some historical information. So this is as of 12/31. You do continue to issue a comprehensive annual financial statement. There's a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, there is more information in there than you're required to put in your annual financial statements, including the transmittal letter at the front. And I think the most useful is in the back, there's a section called the statistical section, which gives 10-year trends on a lot of information, which it can be kind of interesting to see, the trends over time. Our opinion on your financial statements continues to be unmodified or unqualified opinion. It's the highest level of assurance we can give over your financial information. What that means basically is somebody could pick up your financial statements and evaluate them in all material respects as they look at the financial health of the village.
I'll just point on a couple things in the financial statements because they are 200 pages long and we don't want to go through them page by page. But the statement of net position is one of the first financial statements, and that's where we really take all the funds of the village and put them down into two columns. There's the governmental activities and your business type activities. And there's some information on these statements that you don't typically see, which would be your capital assets. So your roads, other infrastructure, your police cars, your buildings, things like that, along with all of your long-term debt, including the net pension liabilities that was previously spoke to. So there's, again, just a lot of information there. The one pension fund that wasn't spoken about is IMRF, Illinois Retirement Fund. You've actually moved into a net pension asset with that as of the end of the year, which means that the assets that they hold on your behalf exceed the liabilities at this point, just slightly, but you're over 100% funded, which is nice. And that's really driven by some great market returns over the last couple of years. So, if you didn't have those net pension liabilities on your books right now, you would have a positive unrestricted net position, but right now you do have a negative unrestricted net position in your governmental funds because of these long-term liabilities that you are funding appropriately. The other place that I like to look is at your operating funds. So your general fund, you had a good year in your general fund, so an increase of $1.6 million there. So even on top of the stimulus funding that you received, you still saw you would have had a positive year, which is great. And your fund balance to expense ratio is at 62.5%. That's full fund balance. I understand a lot of communities parcel that up and you might not look at all of your fund balance. You might just look at some unrestricted balances there. In your proprietary funds, which is your funds that are intended to make money on their own, if you will, be funded by charges for services, which is your water and sewer and also your parking lot fund. Obviously, water and sewer saw an increase in fund balance for the year, which meant that the charges for services, at least for the current year, were meeting the needs. Parking lot fund, obviously, with the reduction of commuting, you saw a slight loss this year because of the reduction of the revenue there. Normally, I talk about the funded status of your pension funds, but I won't do that at this point now. We did have to do what we call a single audit this year because of the funding they received from the federal government. If you exceed a certain threshold, we're required to do an audit over some of those federal fundings. We audit them for a lot of different things. Not only how did you spend the money, but did you spend the money in accordance with all the appropriate rules that the federal government lays out. And I'm happy to say we didn't have any findings during that audit. And the only other thing I wanted to mention at the conclusion of the audit, we put together another document, which is our communication letter to you and to the management regarding any recommendations we might have regarding improvements in your internal controls. And, over the years that we've been here, we've seen some of those things slowly be decreased, and happy to say we just have one that remains, which relates to your information technology, really related to, how that's set up and some of the access there. But I know Tom continues to move forward and try to do as much as they can to move forward with that. And there is a management's response written into the communication letter, both for yourself and for anybody in the public who might be able to look at that, understand what the village is doing in response to that. So that's really the end of my prepared remarks, though, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the board? Trustee Domke?
The IT, what exactly in the IT has to be changed?
Tom, if you want to, you might be
And by the way,
for the
that's,
details better than I. But
that's amazing because there were many before that we took care of internally. And I think Tom, to his credit, has really banged away on all those. And I just want to know what the last one is.
Well, there was only a few.
Well, yeah, I know, but still, you got them.
So this one is, it relates to our software, that we use to track the revenues, expenditures, everything that's Munis. So that's the software we use. And before there were super user roles that a lot of people received that, they could do anything and everything if they knew what they were doing. And we've tightened that down to your role is defined by who you are and what you do. So if you're in public works and you're a staff member, you get these roles. And if you're me, you get a certain role. If you're payroll, you only get these roles. So we've created those and put those into place. But as you know, we outside contract for IT. And so it's been, hard to give that up because the IT may not know when somebody's coming on board, but two, what their role may be. And so I'm trying to put together a document that would help, onboarding to say, if they go to this position, then they get these, roles and responsibilities. And so that would get away from me doing that, which is the point of the comment that I'm the one that's doing that, and give that to somebody that's outside of finance to do that responsibility.
And do you see that by next audit?
I hope so. That's something to me, it's, again, we're using contracted, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to give that trust. Because they, not that there's anything wrong with them, but, they may not be here next week. It could be somebody else coming in, and now we got to do this. So that's why I got to make sure the document that I put together is comprehensive enough that somebody can walk it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you both. We don't have any new business tonight. We have another time for public comment. So anyone wishing to provide comment on a topic? Yes, sir, please. Yes, please step forward.
Karen, I owe an apology to because she actually proved to me I was on the mailing list. So, and I also appreciate that I'd say, yes, Jim, you are on the list. You did. I just want publicly say that.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do not have, or I guess, any other business from the board tonight?
I'll make a motion to go to executive session.
I don't believe we have any executive session tonight.
You could go.
Thanks for trying that.
Have a good time.
Bye.
Do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
No, I don't. I wanna go to executive.
All right, well, then I'm going to make a motion to adjourn and that Lee goes to executive session all by himself.
Thank you, trustee Berkshire. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Alpina. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Yes.
All those opposed, nay.
Go ahead.
Any abstentions?